stage name is Archetype, and really there's no story behind it. I just saw a word one day, I found it somewhere, I can't remember in what context, and it just threw me off, and I thought, okay, let me look in the dictionary, what did this word actually mean? So the word archetype basically means that it's like a one-off version of something. So like the first creation of like a car or like a phone or something is the archetype. So you can almost compare it to a prototype, if that makes sense. But there's a slight difference. So every other model, for example, so your camera, for example, is based on an original version of that camera. So the archetype would be the very first version of that camera. So that's where the name came from. There was no kind of deep meaning behind it. I just saw the name, and it just struck with me. The only real kind of negative I have with the name is a lot of people, when I say it, they confuse it with architect, which is very different from archetype. It's spelled Archetyp rather than architect. So that's where the name came from, really.
Right. So when we get into hip hop and poetry, what impact would you say poetry and hip hop have had on yourself on the creative and personal level?
On a kind of personal note, I've always been interested in writing and expressing my thoughts on paper. So even from a young age at school, for example, I've always felt the need just to, even if it wasn't necessarily for performing, I've always just jotted my thoughts down, kind of my opinions on life. So when it comes to taking it to the stage or performing hip hop and poetry, there's no kind of real connection in the sense that it naturally just came to me. I started as an MC back when I was about probably 11 or 12, just messing about. And I don't know what kind of possessed me, but I was into kind of battle rap, and I was into that kind of stuff, and Eminem had a big influence on me, and Taking It Back, Public Enemy, they had a huge influence on me. In terms of poets, kind of, it's more of a new kind of trend, especially here in London, I think. It's been going on in America for a while with Def Jam poetry and all these kind of things, but poetry for me is the same as hip hop or as rap, but it's this kind of same kind of expression, but without music and without beats.
Yeah.
Because rap basically stands for rhythm and poetry, and hip hop is more around the culture, so breakdancing, graffiti, DJs. The movement is hip hop, if that makes sense. So on a personal note, it's influenced me because it expresses me. I can use the art form, I can use the creativity, I can use all of that just to be myself, really.
Yeah.
And I think rather than fitting into hip hop has given me the opportunity to express myself.
So how much influence or how much of an impact do you think it's had on the wider generation in general?
It depends what you mean by the wider generation, in the sense that when I look at my generation, kind of the early 20s or late 20s, or even late teen, like people growing up, getting into 17, 18, 19, for example, the impact is there in the sense that it can be a positive. For example, the stuff Tupac was saying, or B.I.G. was saying, and all these kind of pioneers of hip hop. And to some extent nowadays, Kendrick Lamar for me is a beast when he talks, he rhymes. These kind of people are very positive on our generation and the wider generation, and people from the UK, to give props and to give homage to these people like Akala, they're speaking a lot of truth. The issue I have is, I don't want to mention names here, but there's a lot of artists and there's a lot of hip hop heads and there's a lot of rappers who are not really producing good material. And what they're talking about is nonsense, but it's getting backing and it's getting radio play. So it's almost a responsibility for me as an artist to kind of speak truth and to speak what I feel is important, whether that's personal, spiritual, political, all that kind of stuff. So with anything, there's always going to be negative consequences, but there's always going to be positive consequences. So it depends how you define yourself and what kind of purpose you follow, really.
So, do you think both art forms are perceived by society as a whole?
Let me start with kind of spoken word poetry first, in the sense that I think it's given much more respect and it's given much more regard amongst certain people within the society. When you say you're a poet, it's almost like you're accepted or you're kind of given more time by the white middle class, and it's seen as a more acceptable form of expressing yourself. Even in the curriculum, for example, English, there's kind of sections focused on poetry. When it comes to hip hop, it's you're using the same art form, but you're using it to captivate a different audience. So it's seen in a very different way. As soon as you say you're an MC or you're a rapper, people look at you differently for almost giving the same message. So it's kind of strange, but it's just like, why can't you be both?
Yeah.
And I think at the end of the day, if you want to be a good MC or a good rapper, you have to be versed in poetry at the same time.
So how do you think both hip hop and poetry can positively influence the younger generation?
The younger generation, I mean, like anything, words are powerful. Like, and it's part of your mind frame and it's part of your education. Like, at the end of the day, you need to express yourself in some shape or form. So for me, I'd rather you pick up a pen and pad and write down your thoughts in a poetic form, in a prose form, in a hip hop form, whatever it is, rather than messing about and just sitting out there and getting in trouble. So that's it, and we need to focus on that. People need a kind of a way to let their thoughts out and their expressions out. So poetry and hip hop are definitely ways of doing that, really.
Right. So how do you see hip hop and poetry's role in society and changing in the future? And how do you see them both evolving?
I see them both. For me personally, I would like them to evolve in a way that I find right now that, no disrespect to any artists out there, but it's very stable in the sense that it's almost, I go to a lot of shows and I go to a lot of places, and no disrespect to the artists because we're all on a journey, but it's almost like we have a loving family in the sense that everyone knows each other. And to some extent, we all know the audiences as well. So it's just like we're preaching to the converted. We need to get out our message to people.
Come out your comfort zone.
Come out our comfort zones and almost use what we do as storytellers or as orators or something, like just to use what we do but push the boundaries. So for me right now, I'm trying to get on the kind of acoustic, live kind of vibrations, in the sense that I'm collaborating with a lot of kind of guitarists and singers, and almost taking my expression to a different place, because music's always evolving and it has to constantly change. You have to live in the time you're surrounding. So if you become stale and you become comfortable, then it's a dangerous thing. So the evolution is natural and it's organic. I think it shouldn't be forced, it shouldn't be kind of packaged. It just should be very natural, and the development should be very natural as well. So the main kind of point I'm trying to make is, I don't know what evolution is, really and truly. I don't know what kind of journey it will take. It will happen when it happens. I was at a jam, for example, yesterday, and there was a couple of guitarists who happened to sing as well. So singer-songwriters, they just played a couple of beats, and we were just messing about, and then something came out of nothing. So that's the evolution. It's organic. It's
natural process.
The natural process, and I think I'm all for that. There's time and place for structure, but that comes almost after the development, really.
So when it comes to yourself as an artist, how do you see yourself evolving, not only as an artist but as a person as well?
Do you know, I've seen the evolution. I've been starting to appreciate it a lot more recently because I was messing about a good few years ago. I started performing, I would say seriously, not even seriously, but I got on stage probably 3 years ago. and I thought, okay, let me try. I like to speak anyway. This is perfect for me. I'm gonna be straight with you. I don't want to be. It's not about the ego, but at the same time, it is about the ego because I like the stage and I like to perform. I think to some extent, I just vibe off it. So that may be an arrogant statement, but I think as an artist or especially as a performer or even an entertainer, you have to use your expression. You have to use your qualities to almost give that off. So in terms of my own evolution, I think I've been taking this a lot more seriously, I would say, for the last year in terms of writing and actually memorizing. That's the next part of the process, I think. But then there's an exciting project that I'm part of called the Cave Collective, which is basically 10 or so artists. We're all individual artists in our own right. So there's a couple of guitarists, a couple of rappers / poets, a couple of singers. So it's a very diverse community of artists just coming together and creating music. And I think for me, because these artists are so good in their own right, I've had to take my art form more seriously, because if I kind of fall by the wayside, then I feel like I'm doing a disservice to these other people. So it's a question of, I saw where I came from. I'm at a stage now where I'm definitely not the finished product. I think we're always developing, we're always changing, we're always evolving. But I feel my content now is a lot stronger than it was before. So it's just carrying on with that, moving on with that, and becoming stronger basically.
So you know what direction you want to go in?
Yes and no. There's always a vision that I have with this, in terms of I want to take my music or my poetry to a level where as many people can access it. And if someone relates to it, for me, that's the main thing. So if I can get one person to think about something, that's kind of job done to an extent. So it's just, that's my journey right now, and it's just like taking that and becoming more comfortable and confident within it.